We are thrilled that you all have joined us. I would like to acknowledge that I am joining from my office located on Piscataway and Susquehannock land, currently known as Baltimore, Maryland. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to our virtual artist talk given today by Kiran Joan. She is the Embark Fellow. Please join us again on December 13th when we will have a talk by Patrick Bell. And for more information about these artists, please visit baltimoreclayworks.org. And I will now turn it over to Kiran.
Thank you, Rebecca, for the introduction, and thank you, Kayla. Okay. Also, thank you everyone for coming. I see a lot of familiar people, so it's nice to see you all. My name is Kiran Joan. I'm an editorial illustrator, and I've worked with a range of publications across the US. I'm also an animator. I teach illustration and animation at Maryland Institute College of Art in Baltimore. And right now, I am an Embark Fellow at Baltimore Clayworks. I also teach some classes here as well, teach ceramics. So I see illustration, ceramics, and animation all kind of flowing into each other. They are all in constant communication with each other, and my work is expansive and includes pottery, sculpture, so I don't feel limited to fit into a box. So this is some of the work that I've been doing more recently. Now, how did I get here? What is an illustrator doing here? And isn't this supposed to be a talk by ceramicists? So I want to share a little bit about myself. I grew up in a coastal city called Mangalore in South India, and I visited my father's ancestral town growing up, which was surrounded by all kinds of flowers, fruit, and vegetable trees. And so I learned that nature is a teacher of life lessons, and flowers can be a unique symbol of strength and resilience. And so these ideas have had a huge influence on my work and understanding of the world. Mangalore is also known for its beaches, its delicious seafood, and also for some incidents of moral policing. And so there were a string of incidents of assaults against women by right-wing religious activists, and it left an impression on me growing up. And it led me to question why this policing even exists. Which leads me to the process of the main project I've been working on and has driven the narratives in my work over the years. I was looking at texts by Freud and thinking about the psychological impact religion has on women and their sexuality and why it exists. And what about women's pleasure is unacceptable in society? And this was leading me to look at more visual solutions to this problem. So looking at nature again, if sexuality in nature is so freely expressed, then why is it unacceptable for women to express their sexuality? So I was really inspired by Hieronymus Bosch's Garden of Earthly Delights. And I was really drawn to the structures in his paintings and wanted to create women as structures that exist in nature and are a part of it, that emanate feelings of love, strength, and resilience. Creating these structures were inspired by forms in nature and real flowers, whose delicate motion indicates feelings of desire and sexuality. And so I was beginning to find my voice in illustration and animation, creating these soft, sensitive pieces. So this project ultimately led me to look at manifesting for answers, building out these magical worlds where people can rest and live freely without any judgment. And I was creating illustrations of these large sex toys in a garden, calling it like a garden of self-love. And so taking it one step further, I wanted to bring it even more to life, and I started exploring ceramics. And I was introduced to this medium at a ceramic workshop when I was a graduate student in the illustration practice program at MICA. And I was learning under fantastic mentors like Whitney Sherman, Kimberly Hall, and Miley Degnan, and more. So this piece is called Lajja, meaning shame in Kannada, which is a South Indian language specific to the state of Karnataka. And this sculpture is inspired by another sculpture, which I'll get into a little bit later. So I was obsessively making ceramic pieces and really trying to build this world out. While also making animations like these to understand what it all meant. Some were explorative and some were more specific. So here is an animation for an exhibition called PMS, curated by Meltem Shine. And it's a take on the myth and lived experience that pheromones or other factors can influence and shift periods for women who live together. I was also exploring character building and how people within this world experience kindness and safety. I was also influenced by painters like Jamini Roy, Amrita Shergill, Pushpamala N, who I worked as an assistant for, and who's primarily a performance and photo-based artist. So I received my bachelor's in sculpture from Karnataka Chitrakala Parishad, which is a college in Bangalore in South India. And I was learning the basics of hand building, portraiture, life study, working with red clay, terracotta, and also exploring different materials like traditional bronze casting, working with plaster molds, fiberglass, and then kind of mixing materials together, like mixing glass and plaster, while also illustrating on the work. So in like the piece in the middle, you can see that there's like some illustration in there as well. And during this time, I was also looking at sculptures like Lajja Gauris, This is Laja Gauri, who's a lotus-headed Hindu goddess associated with abundance, fertility, and sexuality. Lajja also means shame or disgrace. And so I wanted to make my own version of this goddess as being bold, fearless, confident, a thinker. And this was in the second year of my undergraduate degree. So I was also exploring animation in my own kind of the beginnings of animation when I was in my undergrad, critiquing the sculptures around the city. And then in my final year, I went on to work with fiber. And I was working with making sculptures, looking at body hair and embracing body hair. And these were materials given by my mom. I was using her saris to make sculptures. And so now, as I spend time here at my residency, I continue to explore these ideas of sexuality on functional pieces, normalizing these ideas that could possibly be in our homes. But also adding a little bit of humor and playfulness to the characters and trying to tap into the awkward personality that we all have within ourselves. And so once I found a rhythm of making these characters, they all started to show up on mugs. And I see these characters as all friends sharing space together, and building out a community, which has been a big part of being here as well at Clayworks. And so even though these characters look similar, they aim to capture a moment when you're looking at your friend and you see yourself in your friend, and them in you. So I've been selling them at local shops in Baltimore, like Good Neighbor, and Amano, Brooklyn in New York. What has been keeping me most occupied at the moment is building out a series of furniture items, which has been really exciting. Chris Shank's work from Off the World at the Museum of Art and Design has lustrous furniture pieces that hold so many stories. His sculptural furniture blurs the line between art and design. And so looking at his work has been really exciting as well. I'm also drawn to Jolie Engo's work, Sergei Isupov, and Chioza. So my process with a piece generally looks like creating a rough sketch, or just building out a piece and seeing where it goes, and then figuring out how to make sense of the piece. Slowly kind of drawing on it and then adding underglaze. And this is what the final piece looks like. After that, the options are sort of endless. It started off as the intention for it to be a fountain, and you can see a little glimpse of my studio. But I've also been kind of working on it and thinking, what if it can go into a digital space and be an animation? And so I think I'm interested in kind of pushing my work in different directions, exploring as much as possible. So this space is filled with fantastic ceramic community. The resident artists here have been a great support and source of learning for me. So I'm really grateful to be with Clarissa, Shay, Vanna, and Patrick. Yeah, thank you. Thank you to Clayworks, and thank you to Rebecca for organizing this talk.